Folks, I am not sure if you've felt that earthquake, but we in the real estate injury had an earthquake last week when the lawsuit came out against and judgment came out against NAR, National Association of Realtors. I thought I should ask a top 1% agent. What is she hearing? What is she feeling? What's going on? What might change for buyers and sellers agents? Because something's going to change. But what's going on, Beth?
Hey there. Yeah, thank you, Mike, for having me on to talk about this topic. It's really important. I know in brokerage circles, it's been just the only topic of discussion almost for the last week or so, or leading up to this. This has been coming for years. And really where it came from originally was, I believe, a lack of transparency about, there's a lot of confusion out there about who is paying the buyer's agent and how much the buyer's agent is being paid. So I'm in the Seattle area, and our Northwest Multiple Listing Service in 2019 tried to get ahead of this, and I think did a good job. They were the first to put in the public fields what the buyer's agents were being paid, because there was a lot of secrecy around that before. A lot of times buyers never knew how much their agent was being paid. It was never put on the contract, or it wasn't transparent. It wasn't portrayed as being negotiable.
Okay.
Commissions are always negotiable, always negotiable. There's no one set commission. There's no standard commission. It's very important people understand that. The way that it was structured, just to keep things on kind of simpler for this conversation, is that the listing agent and the seller would negotiate how much the commission was going to be. And then in the listing agreement, it says how much is being paid to the buyer's broker. Right. In Washington, they're all brokers. Some of there's this agent brokers saying, so how much is getting paid to the buyer's agent? And a lot of times the buyer themselves never really knew what that was. And a lot of agents were representing it and saying that it was free, so for a while back, our MLS was saying, like, buyer brokers do not say that your representation is free to the buyer, because it isn't. And then there's this chicken and egg thing of like, who actually pays the buyer agent? The seller feels like they're paying them because it comes out of their net proceeds. However, those net proceeds come from what? The buyer's purchase funds and or loan proceeds. So it's this thing about who's paying for it, and is it actually negotiable? So part of this lawsuit was about some of it was about the allegation that brokerages were fixing their rates at a certain amount, and you're not allowed to offer less, and that you're not allowed to put it in the MLS without a buyer brokerage commission. So you can't put it on there with 0, for example, and have a buyer pay to bring their own agent. So what needed to happen was there needed to be almost a decoupling of this, like where it is like, it's how the compensation is offered to the buyer agent, and is it negotiable? And so our MLS started a while, but we have a change coming to how our agency is configured and everything starting in January. So a brief history of buyer brokerage, buyer agency, is that it wasn't always there. In Washington back in 1997 was when it started, that buyer's agents became a thing. It used to be everyone was an agent of the seller, even the one that was working with the buyer. And that we can see where that could result in confusion and misunderstandings, where someone feels like their agent is supposed to be representing them, but they're really working for the seller's best interest. So there was a need for buyers to be represented, to have someone that's advocating for them. Yeah. And then that person and sellers would want to incentivize a buyer agent to come bring a buyer to their house. So it's not always been where you don't have, oh, I can just put a sign out there and any number of buyers will come. But will they come if they have to pay the commission where they don't at other houses? Yep. You don't want to disincentivize someone. Nobody wants to work for free.
Yep.
So how this is going to change, so there's a little bit of background there, but how it's going to change is there's going to be a lot more conversations about what a buyer's broker is going to do and who is going to pay for it. So one thing I will say is that this is a time for agents, both listing agents and buyer agents, and I do primarily listing, seller representation, but I do represent buyers as well. And my team members represent buyers as well. And so If somebody is the people that aren't earning their pay are honestly in danger of being phased out in this business. So the people that are the key turners, that don't have any insight, that don't have good negotiation skills, don't know their way around a contract, don't know how to advocate for a buyer to the point where they are earning their pay, probably will get phased out. And I do believe that buyer's agents there is a place for great buyer agents, because the typical buyer out there, and that may not be all of our listeners here, some people here are very experienced, maybe don't necessarily need that. That's a discussion for them to have. But the typical buyer, so this comes from, so Zillow, I used to work really closely with Zillow and partnered with them a lot. And their research team has told me and other top agents that we're working with Zillow that their research show that the typical home buyer and user on their site doesn't know anything about the process. They don't know the lingo, they don't know the process, they've never done it before, or they've spent many years since they've done it. It's different now. They don't know anything. They need someone to guide them through this. They need someone to tell them, is this contract written to be fair? What are the possible pitfalls in this contract? The inspection report came back and it has all these things on it. What should I ask for, if anything? What price should I offer based upon what other homes are selling for in our area? And so you as a buyer agent need to be able to have that knowledge and skill to be able to advocate for your client and have those conversations. In Washington, now in some areas, I know it's always been customary or even required for buyer's agents to have a buyer agency agreement with their client. But in Washington, it was not. And for a lot of buyer's agents, there was never anything signed. And so that is going to be changing in January 1st, where that's one of the things that's going to be changing for us most, is like, we must have a signed agreement before any real estate services are provided. Even opening a door for someone is a real estate service. So I wonder how these Zillows and Redfins and everybody else out there is going to work. If somebody clicks a button and wants to see a house, you need to have an agreement in place before you go show them that house, which in some ways is good, because buyers understand what they're being, what is being offered and what the expectation is. And so there's going to be a little bit of, growing pains as we ease into this, but ultimately I think it's a good thing. And I'm looking forward to more transparency out there. I do not believe, I know I've been talking a lot here, but one more point I want to make is I do not believe that sellers are going to start offering zero and buyer's agents are not going to be paid. So now keep in mind, in our Northwest MLS, sellers haven't had to offer a buyer agent commission for years. So we've been doing this for years. We're maybe among the first in the country to do that. I looked yesterday to see in King County, which is 2.2 million people, the entire, greater Seattle area, there were only 3 listings that offered 0 buyer agent commission. One of them was bank owned. One of them was a builder that's known for not wanting to pay agents. And then the third one was just a random one. So it's only one that was offering 0. And even on that one, in the agent remarks, it said, write in the contract what you think what your buyer agent commission should be. So it's basically saying, you tell us what you want, let's negotiate it.
Right.
And so I would say if you're a buyer's agent or a buyer working with an agent and there's no commission being offered or a very low one, those are actually really good opportunities, because what it means is we can have a negotiation.
Right.
And if other buyers and their agents are staying away because, oh, I don't want to pay a commission on that one, just know that, all it is an invitation to come in and negotiate, and you can get actually some really good opportunities there. I helped a client purchase one for way less when there was a minimal commission offered in a very hot area. Nobody was looking at that listing. We were able to get in there, get a great price, great terms in favor of the buyer. They saved a ton of money, and the seller paid me still. I just negotiated it into the contract. So I'd say, don't be afraid of 0 commission. It just means we have to negotiate, and that's where we show our worth, and that's where we earn our pay.
It's going to be really interesting. And as a complete outsider to this phenomenon, it's clear to me the legal process is just starting. I'm convinced this will be appealed, and it's not done yet. I do see the buyer and seller agents world's changing, because they all want to get ahead of this. Maybe King County is ahead of it early. We've talked a lot about buyer's agents, but as a complete outsider, one of the things I wanted to share with you, because maybe I'm wrong, is I actually see the listing agent's job changing more. And what do I mean by that? I see companies like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, maybe another 3 that aren't even invented yet, basically coming after the listing side. And what they could do there is they could sell the vision of ease, standard process, come list with me for 1% or 2%. And in a world with no inventory, that stuff probably sells. In a world where inventory eventually grows, it probably is a problem. But I think both the selling agent and listing agent, their jobs could be very different in a year and a half.
I think so too. One thing I can say about this business is it's always changing and adapting. And, when I started, like Zillow didn't even exist. And, we barely had an MLS, and it was like, things are always changing, always. But one thing that doesn't change is that there are people out there that really appreciate the guidance of a professional to help them through this process of selling their largest, for many, is their largest asset. And they haven't done it before. They don't know what to do. They need someone to guide them through the process to help them, because buying a house is as stressful. Again, the Zillow research team told me it's as stressful as a death in the family or a divorce. And they need a trusted professional that really knows what they're doing to guide them through this. There are going to be some push button sell house companies out there, but I think a lot of people want more. Those have been around for a while. That's not a new thing. And there've been the 1% companies out there. There's a place for that. So that's an option. I think that the consumer should have options, and they should pick whichever one is the best fit for them. I know for me, I work with people who really want to have somebody to guide them through the process and help them maximize the return and have the best experience with that, and knowing that they got a true professional, not a algorithm. But there's out there that maybe are fine with the algorithm, and that's okay. One thing I would say, sorry, go ahead.
Here's the biggest problem, right? This is kind of the punchline for me. I fear that the biggest loser in this lawsuit result is actually the end customer. The end customer could be taken advantage of. And what do I mean by that? Right? We're going to have all this messaging around this thing and go list here for cheap and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I can just see the future, right? And you're going to have mom and dad who see these things. They're technically enabled. Apps have been around a while. They think it's easy, right? We all live in our freaking phones today. So why not list my home on a phone app? But most people don't know what their house is worth. They can't comp a house. They can't do real comparisons and values. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that take the easy route that actually get a lot less money. Because if you don't know what your house is worth in real time, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to either list it way too high and get no action, or you're going to list it way too low. And some guy like me who watches the market every day I'm going to pay you 5% over your list price, and you're going to think you got a deal. I'm going to know I made $500,000 because you mispriced it.
Yep. And I think the seller themselves is too enmeshed in their own property.
Yeah.
There's a lot of real estate agents that won't sell their own homes because they need somebody else to tell them what they need to hear, because you can't see it when you're living in it and it's your home. And we all see how well the algorithms did with the open doors and the Zillow. I mean, like, they're not good at pricing. And when you do a factory approach, you're not going to get it's been proven that it doesn't work. And so people will be, and the other way that a consumer will be harmed is that if buyer's agents are meant to, or people start to think that buyer's agents aren't needed, or they don't want to pay a buyer's agent, usually you can negotiate a seller to pay it. There's a reason why buyer's agency exists. It's because buyers need somebody to look out for them and their interest. It helps the seller when there is a buyer agent involved, because they can bring people to them that they wouldn't get otherwise. The thing that may be threatened in some cases is if buyer agents start to go directly to the listing agent and then they don't get representation because the listing agent is representing the seller and the seller's best interest only.
Yeah.
At best, they can be a dual agent, but then that's the thing that might change for me as a listing agent is I may have more people asking me to do dual agency, and I personally don't practice that because I have found it to be a losing game for everyone involved. That's just me. I know a lot of people will think that's heresy to even say such a thing, but I find it's good when there's one person that's working in one person's best interest and another person working in the other person's best interest. I can't do both. You know, and they say you can be neutral, but it doesn't work that way. When a buyer needs help filling out the contract, what price should I offer? I don't know, fill it in, you know, it's like they're going to want to talk to me or somebody about, they're going to want somebody to do that buyer's agent role. And then if both sides feel like I'm getting paid extra, they both want some of that back, and then I end up doing the work of two people for one, or, you know, I don't like to feel a conflict of interest. I don't do that. I feel like there might be some more pressure on me to have that conflict.
Well, at the end of the day, this is just starting. There's a lot more. The only people getting rich in the next year or so are going to be the lawyers and attorneys.
Oh, I know. They're the real winners here.
There you go. Well, Beth, you're amazing. Folks, if you want to reach out and get a referral, look her up. Beth Traverso. She is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.